Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my movie talk for the horror satire slasher movie, The Final Girls. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, this is going to be super confusing, so I highly recommend you watch that before you watch this. Alright, let's get straight to it. When the group returns to the campsite after seeing their friend get stabbed by Billy, they figure that the only way to stop Billy from showing up is to keep the characters from having sex with each other. So when Billy was summoned, quote unquote, earlier, it was because those two teens were fornicating in the woods. And from what Duncan has told the group, they surmised that they have to keep everyone from having sex. So Chris distracts Kurt, who has a thing for Nancy. Just wants to bang her and walk away. He doesn't actually want a relationship. And Max convinces Nancy that Kurt isn't worth it. He's not worth her time, and she should just stay a virgin because the group knows that Nancy and Kurt are supposed to have sex, and then they both get killed by Billy. So they learn about Billy's past from a cool black and white flashback, like melting kind of screen going into a black and white flashback thing. Super interesting way to do a flashback in a movie. Really enjoy it. Like the characters actually go into the flashback as it's happening. It's really fun. And then Paula shows up. I really love how they did the flashback thing, like I said, and it's cool to see the change of the color on the screen. It's a really fun watch to see that. So, Paula's here now, showed up in a really cool ride. She seems like this cool, like, punk chick. Like, it's really strange. You think that she wouldn't be a virgin, but the way that horror movies usually depict the virgin as being this pure, innocent looking girl, she ain't pure and innocent. Vicky sticks with Paula, the final girl, because obviously she wants to live. And Gertie befriends another counselor. Basically, he's the token black guy. His name is Blake. When Gertie brings up the topic of Billy after their flashback, and the characters of the movie actually realize that he is an actual real creature, like a real person who's out to get them, it's after this whole scene happens with Kurt and Nancy in the bedroom, and Max convinces Nancy not to have sex with Kurt, but Kurt still shows up, he still strips, and Billy still has his music play in the house, and he shows up, and then everybody else realizes that this is a real thing, and everybody starts freaking out. The counselors try to flee the camp. Kurt gets in Paula's cool car, and we get this really funny moment with Adam Devine. I told you guys I love him as an actor. He improvs his lines in the scene, and it's absolutely hilarious. I watched the bloopers for this movie, the post-credit bloopers, and they have a bunch of different versions of this scene, and all of them are so funny, but I love the one they picked for the movie. So as they try to escape, Duncan comes out of nowhere. He's still alive. He's like clutching his side. He's like, "I'm still here, guys." And Paula's driving so fast that she hits him and then crashes into the pole of the camp sign. And Kurt like flies out of the windshield of the car, and he just like lands super hard and breaks his spine and dies. It's a very, very graphic scene. And then they're like, "Oh, well, at least Paula's still there. We'll have to get her out of the car." And then the car explodes. So they just lost 3 people in that collision. So now that they realize that anyone is fair game, because Paula was the final girl, she was supposed to survive the whole movie. She was supposed to kill Billy. They're like, everyone's fair game now. Even people who weren't supposed to die. The group has to come up with a plan to defeat Billy and survive the movie. Because they realize that they have to survive the whole movie in order to get out of it. So they start by making sure that Tina, the most promiscuous of the group, cannot strip by wrapping her up in this totally ridiculous outfit of a flotation vest and oven mitts, and put duct tape on her so she can't take the oven mitts off to take off the flotation vest. It's a whole thing because she tries to do it like a bunch of times throughout this part of the movie. I absolutely love how funny it is. I also love how her character can't help but want to strip because that's just how she was written. It's so great. Like, she's meant to strip in a scene, and since she didn't get to do it yet, she starts trying to strip regardless. It's part of her character. It's written into her character, so obviously she's going to try and do it. So they also decide that Max, being the only virgin remaining since Paula is dead, besides Nancy, is the new final girl. They have to figure out a way for her to get Billy's machete so that she can kill him with it, just like Paula was supposed to. While the group plans a way to get Billy vulnerable. You know, we get that obligatory montage of trap setting up and everything. Like, it's very Scooby-Doo-esque. Um, Max can kill him. Max and Nancy actually bond more and talk about how when this is all over and Nancy lives, she should come and start a new life with Max. This moment's honestly so sad and touching because we as the audience know that Max is only thinking about the fact that this woman is her mother and she just wants her back in her life. Even though this movie is mostly a parody of Friday the 13th and a parody of horror slashers in general, it's meant to be a satire. It actually has a lot of great little moments that make me like these characters more and make me want to root for them. It's not like a generic slasher where I don't even know all these characters like at all. I only really get to know the final girl and maybe the guy that she likes, and everyone else is just fodder for the killer. This movie actually makes you genuinely care about a lot of the characters. We even get this scene where Vicky and Max are on the pier beside the lake, and Vicky acknowledges that she might die because she's the mean bitchy girl, and the mean bitchy girl almost always dies. Her and Max actually reconcile their friendship because before Max's mom died, they used to be best friends. They grew apart in high school, though. Vicky leaned toward the more social, popular lifestyle, and Max was more introverted because she lost her mother and they couldn't relate to each other anymore. So they grew apart. Vicky just wants Max to know that she still cares. I mean, we get little snippets of this throughout the movie, like that scene earlier before they even got into Camp Bloodbath, where Vicky acknowledges the fact that this is the anniversary of Max's mother's death, so maybe she shouldn't be at this movie. She's concerned for her mental health or her safety, but she also still has her own personal agenda. But now we're starting to see the fact that that personal agenda aside, she actually really does care for Max. But this scene happens and it just works so well to establish character development. And we don't often get character development from horror movies, especially the slasher genre, because it's mostly the generic formula. Like I said, everyone is fodder except for the final girl and maybe the guy that she likes, because sometimes he lives. So we only really get to know the final girl as a character, and we only really get to know maybe that one guy as a character. We don't really get to know a lot about everyone else. That's just the generic formula for a slasher horror movie. Everyone else is fodder. Everyone else is there to add to the kill count. So I really appreciate that this movie does that in such a heartfelt way without taking away from the satire element of the movie. Like, they don't take away from the satirical elements that they have already established in the movie. It still feels like a satire or a parody or a dark comedy, but it still has these moments that make me appreciate it even more and make me more invested in the characters, which is a very valuable thing that a horror movie should always consider. I want to care about those characters. I want to care what happens to them. I want them to matter to me. It's just like the Scream franchise does a great. I know I'm going to say Scream franchise does a great job with this, and this, and this because my favorite franchise, but they really do a good job with establishing a love for characters, like creating character development that's meaningful. Like, we care about Dewey, we care about Sydney, we cared about what happened to Randy, and we're mad that that happened to him because he was a likable character and he was a genuine character, and they made us like him. They give these characters good character development, like Dewey's relationship with Gale throughout the movies, and they establish this relationship and this build up, and it makes me more invested in their lives, and it makes it matter to me more whether or not they live or die. So, ranting aside, this is something that I appreciate that this movie does over other movies. When the time finally comes, so getting back to the actual movie we're talking about, after many short, funny scenes with Tina and Vicky's cell phone, like that generic, like, what's this thing do? And she tries to eat it at one point. It's really funny. And then, of course, our heartfelt moments with Vicky and Max and Nancy. It's time for Tina to strip to summon Billy. So before we move on, I just have to say, I'm not lying when I say summon. This movie implies that in order to get the killer to show up, something sexual must be happening. This is such a funny trope. It makes me feel like it's a legit summoning. It's like I'm playing a Magic the Gathering game. I gotta summon this character. It just feels like I'm summoning something. It's like I'm playing like a wizard game, or like just like no, like I'm playing a Yu-Gi-Oh game and I'm summoning my Blue Eyes White. I just feel like I'm summoning something. Uh, it's like the killer won't show up unless someone is doing something sexual. And it's just so great. That trope is so hilarious. So Tina does this really funny striptease in the open doorway of the cabin, and surprise, surprise, of course, it summons Billy. Billy slowly walks toward them, it's like the Jason Voorhees, like slowly walks toward his victims. We know this man can run, but he just has this more ominous, slow walk. So now, this whole next scene is a jumble of many characters dying. So Tina gets it first when she is afraid of Billy charging toward her in the doorway, and she runs into a bear trap and gets her head chopped off. Then we get Blake, who accidentally gets impaled by something that they were trying to get. He gets impaled. So then we get Vicky and Gertie, who get crushed by a bookshelf, and then Billy stabs them through the bookshelf. And at this point, Vicky and Gertie were successful with their plans to light Billy on fire. So Billy is on fire, and we get this really sad scene where Vicky pleads for Max to run away as she accepts her fate. She knew she was going to die. She knew that she was the bitchy girl. She was going to die. So we get this great slow-mo running scene that, of course, involves jumping through a window. Because what movie of the horror genre isn't complete without the final girl circuit involving jumping through a second-story window? Let's be honest. It happens all the time. Friday the 13th does it. Scream does it. So many movies, genres, so many series do it. It's great. And some of them utilize it more than once, which makes it even more predictable but fun. So Billy's chasing the final three people, Nancy, Max, and Chris, through the woods in this really cool slow motion shot where he's on fire. Fire stunts, by the way, are very famous in the Friday the 13th movies. We have Kane Hodder to thank for that. That man is not afraid of dying by fire, it seems. But in this movie, I love the fire effects, and I love the slow motion. It makes it feel like he's on fire longer than he actually is, because you can only be on fire for I believe it's a minute or less is the amount of time that an actor can safely stay on fire with only acquiring minimal burn damage to their skin. I mean, Kane Hodder actually has patches of severely burnt skin. Like, I believe he got third-degree burns a couple of times in some fire stunts. There was this one Friday the 13th movie that he did where he was on fire for over a minute, and he got severely burned and had to go to the hospital. I believe his throat almost closed. It was a whole thing. So it's a regulation. They can only be on fire for a certain amount of time before the special coating they have on this burn suit wears off and they actually catch on fire. So when you see someone in a movie is on fire, they're legitimately on fire. It's not CG. They're actually on fire. So after the chase scene, a lot of things happen. They try to hide, and it's all with this really cool looking thunderous sky background with like the cracks of thunder hitting, and this really cool blue, purple, and red filters that they cycle through on the screen. The lighting is very eerie with the blues and the purples and the reds, and I absolutely love it. It's like a psychotic psychedelic. That's some great alliteration right there. It all ends up with Chris severely injured. Max is also injured as well, and Nancy realizes at this point that there can only be one final girl, because Max, no matter how many times she tries to kill Billy at this point, she can't do it. And Nancy decides to sacrifice herself. So Max doesn't want her to sacrifice herself, but she can't stop her. So Nancy goes outside of the abandoned church that they were hiding in and strips to summon Billy. Again, with the summoning thing. It's legitimately the only way I can, describe how they get Billy to show up. It's literally summoning him. He kills her, and then Max can finally take his machete in a fit of rage after losing Nancy, and she dives in for the final blow on Billy. So the movie credits for Camp Bloodbath roll over the sky as Max stands there in the open field in front of the church. Really beautiful shot. Love that shot. Love the lighting effect for that shot. It's great. But no, those were not our credits. Those were Camp Bloodbath's credits. We're not done yet. And if our heroes think they're finished and they're set free, they are far from right. All of them wake up in a hospital, so Max, Chris, Duncan, Gertie, and Vicky are all alive. Everyone who went to the movie is alive. But they are not in a hospital in their time period. No, they are in a hospital at the sequel of Camp Bloodbath. They know this because they see a nurse and a doctor about to engage in sexual acts in the hallway outside of their room, and they then hear Billy's summoning music. I'm just going to call it a summoning music at this point because we're done now. Max is fed up with this shit, and obviously, I would too, I don't blame her. She takes a weapon and charges at Billy as our actual movie credits roll. So this movie is just so fun to watch if you have a genuine appreciation for slasher movies like I do, and if you have a love for Friday the 13th, the franchise. I love that franchise so much. It's so classic. Thank you all for joining me for another episode of Movie Talk. Next week, I will be doing a movie talk on one of my other favorite horror movies, Jennifer's Body. That's on my top 10 list. If you haven't seen that, you should go check that out. Also, if you like my content and you want to know exactly when I will do my uploads, make sure you follow me on Twitter, and the link for that will be in the description. And make sure you're subscribed to this channel. If you like this video and want to show some love, please hit that like button. I will see you all next time. Have a great rest of your day, and until then.